I have bariatric and metabolic surgeon, world-renowned author, TV personality. He is the king of cool.
Oh,
he is
man.
a man with a plan. He is the Asian sensation, Dr. Duc Vuong.
Woo! Man, that's the best introduction I've ever had. That's awesome. I'm good, and I resemble all those remarks you made, man. I am sitting at home, chilling, you know, don't have a gym in my home, all that stuff. But yeah, we're here to do this with patients, man. Let's help some of our patients and our following. And let me introduce you to my audience. Do you mind? The most interesting bariatric surgeon on the planet. He doesn't always operate, but when he does an amazing job. That's what it is. And he's world, I mean, I say I'm world famous, but he is intergalactically world famous. So Dr. Ariel Ortiz, one of my best friends. You're awesome, dude.
Hey, brother, I appreciate it, man. So thank you for being on. We are doing this series really because two things. Number one, you were asking me a little while ago. So what's up with my life? What's up with my life?
What's up with your life?
Weeks ago, yeah, I had to close the hospital simply to protect patients from other patients and what they probably could interact and infect each other if they were carriers of COVID-19, and of course to protect my staff. All, as you know, we do weight loss surgery. It's all scheduled surgery, and the thing here is that we didn't want to put patients at risk. And I don't know if you've read several studies now that are actually talking about a much higher percentage, a 10-fold probability of death and severe complication on patients that just underwent surgery.
So let me reset for people who don't know. Now you live in San Diego, but you practice in Tijuana, right? And you have a very successful program.
Correct.
Yeah. And so your hospital was really driven by your program for doing, and you've, just so you guys know, lots of surgeons go visit Dr. Ortiz to learn his particular techniques and how he operates. And you were big in doing applications and big sleever and revisional surgery. So he's an expert in his field for sure. And so you were a really busy program, and you operated, can I dare say, mostly Americans who traveled to Tijuana?
99%.
Okay, 99%. So that's medical tourism, for those of you who don't know. That's when you leave a country to go have medicines, surgery, or procedures somewhere else where it's cheaper. India is very popular, but for us, the United States, most people go to Mexico, and Tijuana is a destination. So how busy were you exactly before you shut down? Wow.
We're right now, things have changed. You know how health tourism has always had that negative connotation, especially in the United States, with physicians, with colleagues, because it's sometimes kind of paired up with cheap surgery. Having said that, we've been doing this for over 20 years, and yeah, we've designed some techniques, perfected some other techniques, but ultimately, we consider this a service. There's a lot of patients that aren't going to be able to pay it, expense it out of pocket in the U.S., and or their insurance is not going to cover it. And many times there are procedures that are not available in the United States or in your home country that are available in some other countries, and those are the main drivers for health tourism. So health tourism, the globalization of medicine, now more than ever with the COVID-19 thing, you're seeing the globalization of medicine. But going back to what we were doing, because of the high demand for quality weight loss surgery, we're the only standalone Joint Commission accredited hospital.
That's awesome.
We bought a huge building to be able to.
I'm going to stop you real quick because my feed is saying they're having trouble hearing you, but I hear you just fine. But they're having trouble hearing you.
Interesting.
And
right.
Yeah, that sounds good. How about that? Okay, now that sounds better. And then a viewer said you did his surgery or her surgery, so that's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, well, I actually have your book and I show it off to
Thank
patients.
Yes, they said that's much
Everybody
better.
knows you.
That
So,
mic's much better.
anyways, we decided on building a much bigger hospital, and then that's exactly when the COVID-19 epidemic hit. And here we are with no surgeries right now, but we're still supporting our staff. They're all staying at home, trying to keep safe, keeping others safe as they stay home, and basically trying to weather out the storm.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing that you're able to support your staff, and it's really a testament to what a great leader you are and what a great human you are for doing that. Because I know a lot of, boy, when I was in private practice, that was not going to happen. I was not going to be able to do that. Man, I couldn't support my staff. That's amazing that you're doing it.
Well, let's jump into interesting things, because we're going to talk a lot about all the topics. Like you asked me earlier, it's like, what are we going to talk about? Let's shoot the breeze, dude.
Let's do it.
There's so much to talk about. I follow you everywhere. So you're online, social media, you've got your website, you're on TV. What is it that you're offering patients right now?
Tough times is when you're tested, and you're either going to step up to the plate and prove your mettle, or your old habits are going to come back. So you are tested. So these times expose your weaknesses. And as a patient, by that I mean as a patient, whatever your weaknesses are. I'm a stress eater, I'm an emotional eater, I'm a boredom eater, I don't know what to do, I'm unfocused. All the words that they use to describe themselves. I never finish a project, I get off task easily, I do whatever other people say to do, I just go along. And that sort of passivity is exposed during these times. So what if you were a snack, now the bag of chips is right around, that's stressed out about your work, your mother who's sick with coronavirus, your neighbor who came in with it, if you're going to have a job afterwards, your kid, your daughter who's a flight attendant, and you're worried about her catching it, you know, all that stuff, all the reasons they told you why they gained the weight, it's now exposed. It's now really exposed.
So people are self-soothing with their weaknesses. They self-soothe with food, alcohol, or just not doing anything, right? Just laying around.
Yeah. There was a Facebook meme that said, after all this, we're going to either be overweight or alcoholics.
Well, you know what? And then I like the memes. There's another meme where there's this lazy dude sleeping in his couch, and it says 2019, the perfect definition of somebody lazy, and he is zero value to society.
Yeah.
And then same picture, 2020, responsible citizen.
I know, right? Responsible citizen, superhero, I'm saving the world by sitting on the couch. But that's not really what you need to be doing. So back to the patients, you don't have to be sitting on the couch. I think people don't understand really what social distancing means. It just means stay 6 feet away. It means you don't have to stay inside. Staying home doesn't mean staying inside. You can go and see me gardening. I actually did a plant exchange. I have a little desk on my driveway that I put plants there, and it says free plant exchange. Take one, give one, take one. And I've wiped down all the containers with, your spray or whatever. And believe it or not, it's working. People are exchanging plants. And
you grow your own stuff?
Oh, for sure, man. I teach in my challenge. I teach people how to do a garden, lasagna garden, which is the best way to garden. It's not growing lasagna. I wish it was, but it's not. Like walking around your neighborhood. Now it's time to break out those bikes. You weight loss surgery people, you guys all bought those bikes that you were going to start bicycling and getting in shape. This is the time to do it. It's in your garage. It's got a bunch of tools and clothes.
Usually riding on the street. It's a great way of being respectful of other people's spaces, and that's what we're doing as well. I found myself actually going out with a family. Yes, same thing, same deal. I mean, we live in Coronado, which is an island, and suddenly they just prohibited all types of reunions here.
Wow.
It was less than more than 10 people. Now it's 0.
It looks like California is even starting to break the curve. So, I mean, I don't want to get too optimistic, but, you know, as extreme as it sounds, your mayor, your governor, I mean, you guys are on the ball, you know.
Yeah, we're seeing growth, doubling in numbers, a little bit slower. Nothing compared to New York. Our friends in New York are having such a difficult time, and you will know that I commute every day back and forth when I go to the hospital. So I'm actually sandwiched between two countries. So I'm living what's happening here in California, but in Mexico it's a different scenario. In Mexico there hasn't been this. Well, we did institute these social measures in a timely fashion, but some levels of government weren't taking it that seriously.
Mm-hmm. Shut down or not really? Are they taking it very seriously? I mean, the caseload is much lower.
Well, it seems that the local governments have been more responsible than our national government. Our president took a much lighter view of things. So it was a responsibility of the states, and the states are being pretty aggressive. And in fact, I'm after this talk, I'm doing another talk with the physicians down in Tijuana, and yeah, there's been some cases, but we're not seeing them as widespread as our neighbor up here north in California.
Mm. India, because when I started first looking at coronavirus a couple of weeks ago, you know, March 12th, India had very few cases. They were way on the bottom of the list, and at that point they had under 100 cases, and I've been watching them skyrocket, and they're over 6,000 cases now. And I'm really worried because of their infrastructure. They're the second largest country, but they're not like a military oligarchy like China where they can shut down the country. There's a lot of independence there in India, but then they're crammed in. There's a big disparity between the haves and the have-nots, so they're really crammed in to poor living quarters. And I feel like if the coronavirus caught on in one area of India, we could really be in a major disaster. Like, what do you think about India?
Well, one of the things that I was looking at some testing, or not testing, really some initial data, raw data processing. Countries that have the vaccine against tuberculosis are actually faring better than the ones that don't. So Mexico is one where you definitely have it's called the BCG, Bacillus calmante wedding, and it would seem interesting that could influence the overall infection rate of a country. Hopefully that applies to Mexico, and hopefully it applies to India.
So what are your takes on the economics of this? Do you feel like we've overreacted because, you know, you've already had to shut down your hospital, you're losing a lot of revenue, people depend on you for jobs. I have friends who are in business who just think this was a huge reaction, that there are other bigger causes of death and we don't shut down the country for it. What's your take?
So I believe I'd rather err on the cautious side and do what we're doing right now, because you just said it. You look at California and there's a little hope at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, what do you think will happen if this happens again? Like maybe not the coronavirus or another virus, it could be potentially even more deadly. Do you think we would shut down again or not shut down?
I got to say there's some stuff that has happened. Number one, there's a lot of bullshit going around in politics, like you already know, and like you were saying, all the regulations. There's a lot of things that have been deregulated. The reason why Mexico is so successful is at producing stuff like medications, procedures, medical devices, is because we don't have all the red tape the FDA. There's going to be a lot of facilitated pathways that didn't exist before. I also believe that this thing is not going to leave us this year. It's going to come back.
There should be a second wave in October, right? Yeah.
So as soon as people start relaxing and start interacting again, there's going to be all these asymptomatic people that are spreaders that are going to start spreading the virus again.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that there's no immunity to it. We've never known it as humans. So if you get it, you can basically not even know you had it, or you can
die.
You can die.
Yeah.
So what is going to change? There's three things that can happen. Either we're going to get medications that can treat it early and aggressively. We have some suspicion. There's an anti-parasite drug that's extremely available, especially in Mexico. There's of course, for the hair lice.
Yep.
Oral hair lice medication. There's the other one, which is chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine, antimalarial drug, and the third one, which is a Z-Pak, which is extremely popular and used all around the U.S. and the rest of the world. So either there's a medication that can be developed and used for it, or an immunoglobulin, which if you heard today's report from New York, Governor Cuomo was talking about these plasma extractions from infected and recovered people. Those already have the, let's call it the defenses, they're called immunoglobulins, IgG especially, that can be re-injected into somebody that's sick, and they can actually combat the virus artificially inseminated by somebody else, right? Somebody that's already.
The problem with that the antibody treatment like that is the IgG treatment. I don't think, at least I'm not aware, I don't think it confers lasting immunity to the person who receives it, right? Because they're not making it themselves. It's just like you use it up and it's gone. That's number one. And then number two, I just don't think that can be mass produced on a huge scale so that you can pass it on to everybody in the population, unlike a vaccine.
Well, in fact, there's a California laboratory that's trying to do that. I think they use monoclonal process for antibodies, and those antibodies are artificially made in the lab, and then they produce these huge amounts that can be transferred all around the world, and it's going to give you lasting months of protection while something else is developed, but it's better than nothing, right? Yeah. And the third one is actually having a vaccine. But as you already know, vaccines are being tested left and right, but vaccines take a while to test because you want to be able to really see that they work. Can you imagine mass producing something, and then you find out, I don't know, 6 months later that it doesn't work? So those are
not only does it not work, but it's worse than the disease it's trying to cure.
Well, that's actually happened as well, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe also with this specific virus, if it doesn't mutate enough, we'll be able to catch it at some point. And what do you think of the naysayers for the anti-vaccine people? What do you think they're saying now?
Man, I don't know. I try to stay out of that arena just because I don't know who to believe. When I was growing up, I got vaccinated because I'm an Asian immigrant. Somebody doesn't want to vaccinate their kid, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me. But we know that, like you can track measles outbreaks and chickenpox outbreaks and trace it back to the source. And it's often somebody who wasn't vaccinated. And not to say they're wrong or bad people, it's just the way it is. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, man, I don't know. Maybe we should take a question from people who don't believe in vaccinations. How are they thinking now? Maybe that should be a conversation.
I think that the poll would be, if there's a vaccine out right now, would you, number one, not take it?
Yeah.
Number two, not take it, but give it to your kids, or not?
Yeah, right.
Something like that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting poll. And then, what about these vaccinating objectors? Do you allow them back to work? Do you let them congregate? Do you let them go to church? Do you let them to, you know?
That's one of the probabilities that we're going to be looking at very soon, is that anybody who's had an infection, they're ready to go. They're completely immune. And just like you were seeing that New York started off with infections, the New York virus started off in Europe. So it's changed a little bit, but not enough that your antibodies won't recognize it, and you can get a reinfection. But some, like the influenza viruses, there's so many of the variations that you have to get vaccinated each year.
Well, look at HIV.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, it's been 25 years and we don't have a vaccine for HIV because it mutates on its coat so often.
So one of the things is that at some point in time during the next number of months, either people are going to get some type of protection artificially with those immunoglobulins, like the antibodies, the passive, let's say, defense that is passed on by getting these serum from infected people, or a vaccine. Or if you actually already had the disease and you have a positive test that you weren't in contact with a virus and you're all healed and ready to go, those people will probably be sent back to work again. What do you think of that?
I think this antibody test is super important. We have it out so then we can identify, like you said, the people who have immunity to it. And I caution people that you know, when President Trump says he's going to open back up the country, we probably won't be opening it up all at once because we know that there's going to be peaks and valleys. People, you know, different regions are going to peak at different times. And so we need to be very cautious when we let people go back to work or move around so that we don't reinitiate another reinfection, you know?
So I got a question for you. How'd you end up going viral on YouTube with that video? Tell me about that.
Yeah, my... well, I guess the tagline helped. Coronavirus is gonna kill you. And I don't know. It was good because it was funny because leading up to that, I had been doing some Facebook Lives, and the Facebook Lives were really catching on. People were sharing them, and I was having 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 live viewers. And so I was like, it came to me on how to explain ARDS to people by using those sponges that I did in the video. And so I set it up and I started doing it. And actually that live video only had maybe 800 viewers, not lower than what I had been pulling. But somehow when I edited it down, put it on YouTube and shared it, people liked it enough that it's gotten a lot of shares. If I helped one person take this much more seriously, or shared it with somebody who was at high risk and they took action, then I feel like it was worth it, you know, because at that point when I put it out, people didn't know about coronavirus, and people weren't taking it seriously, and people were still thinking it was a conspiracy to get Trump out of office or overblown or media hype. They couldn't understand why the basketball season had been canceled, and Coachella, what freaking Coachella, what am I supposed to do? Coachella was canceled, and here in Houston, the Houston Rodeo was canceled, and school was getting canceled. So I did an extreme version of the video from my heart. I mean, I wasn't making it up. It's truly how I felt, but I didn't hold back. I mean, I was really like, dude, you need to really take this seriously. Otherwise, you're going to kill grandmother. And I guess that resonated with people, you know, because at that point, I was really afraid for our country because the numbers were terrible, you know, what we had projected. And now, through social distancing and people taking this much more seriously, the new revised numbers are much better. It's still terrible, but they're talking less than 100,000 deaths now. They're talking maybe 80,000, you know, so it's much better than the 2 million they originally had thought if we hadn't done it. Now, just think about it, Ariel. I mean, what if the NBA season had waited another week to cancel their season, and you had another 20 games of 15,000 people in stadiums? You know, what if they hadn't canceled school for another week? Or Broadway. Gosh, imagine Broadway. You know, if they had waited another week. Look at what happened to Louisiana. They didn't cancel Mardi Gras, and Louisiana's on fire. What if they had, right?
You know what happened in Mexico? Good parts of Mexico got infected
Colorado, right? Colorado was a hot spot for a while.
It was ski season. Well, it was, but the guys that got infected, rich people, and that's how it started. And then there's this rumor in Mexico now, in some parts of Mexico, where, well, it only affects the rich people. It won't get us poor people, and all the poor people are like.
I just am thankful, and some people are upset. They wish our government had taken action sooner, and people are trying to make news media out of it. But the reality is, for a country our size of freedom love, we actually complied pretty well. We blunted that curve. Now, is it as good, as we want? Is there an economic impact? Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to go into a huge economic impact because of this. But how do you measure that on the number of lives that we've saved,
So one of the things that we're doing with this series is we're looking at different aspects of the COVID-19 outbreak and how it's impacting. I've got Commander Bobby Brown coming up next. This guy's the commander of all the Pacific Fleet, really great guy, and he says there's got to be structure in your daily life in order to be able to not be affected as a lot of people are being affected with this whole.
Let's talk about these, because it does. We start off by saying how this kind of shows our weaknesses. So we've got several issues we've got to deal with, right? So domestic violence, suicide rates will probably go up, depression, anxiety, stress, etc. But here's one that is really meaningful to me. There are a lot of kids in America who don't eat unless they go to school. The only food they get is from school, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are we doing with those people? And what are we doing for those kids? And what's happening to those families, And it's heart-wrenching. It's tough.
Well, there's a lot. I'm glad you talked about that, because also we're going to do a quick webinar on looking at this whole outbreak from a spiritual standpoint, because fear and uncertainty is something that's rampant right now these days everywhere.
What do you think about those churches that in Florida
happen right? Put it to you a way which people will probably, hopefully, understand. What's happening is that whatever you're seeing happen right now started 14 days ago.
That's correct.
So if somebody feels symptoms today, they probably had contact with somebody 14 days ago. Now, if you add 14 days to that other person that was probably starting the infection, you're talking about a month's time. What were you doing a month's time? You don't know. So it can be as short as 2 days, or it can be 14 days. So right now what we're seeing, let's say, for instance, you're seeing so many deaths in New York. Why? Well, because
they're dying
after the first 7 days of symptoms, let's say there was 14 days from the time you had contact with the infection to the moment you showed symptoms. Then there's another 7 days of symptoms. Then on the 4th week, you finally start getting these respiratory symptoms, and you end up in a ventilator on the 4th week. Then you're going to last on a ventilator maybe 2 more weeks.
That's right.
You're talking a month and a half. So right now they're seeing so many deaths, and they're saying, oh my God, what's happening? Who did what? Well, you're seeing the effects. And again, what's going to happen is that probably we're going to see the effects late April, maybe May. And then by June, everybody's going to relax, and they're going to say, no more cases, no more cases. And you're going to wait till August and September, and then you're going to see more cases again. Why? Because it's 6 to 8 weeks till you see the effects.
Okay, I want to do a rapid fire with you. I want to pick your brain. Okay, so rapid fire means short, quick answers. You ready?
Shoot.
Do you think this was a bioterrorism action weapon?
No.
No. Do you think this was man-made?
No.
No. Do you think this was a scheme to get the President Trump unelected?
No.
Do you think people should start taking chloroquine and Z-Paks at home by themselves?
Definitely not.
Do you think that everybody should be tested for coronavirus?
Yes.
Even if you're asymptomatic?
Yes, because that's going to give us, I got to give you the answer, because that's going to give us the exact knowledge of who has resistance to it already and who can go back to work to go reestablish the economy.
Okay. Do you think ibuprofen is good or bad?
You know what? I looked at ibuprofen. I haven't looked at any other study, but it doesn't seem, because you would, some are avoiding it. But again, the thing is, there hasn't been a single pattern where you can point to all these people are high risk because of X, Y, or Z. We know that if you're immune, risk of having a severe infection and dying. But when you see, and this is something you probably maybe mentioned on the videos, the storm that your immunity produces on the second week, the immune storm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is something that I was talking to.
This is not very rapid.
This is a surgeon who did a PhD on interleukins, the so sickly coded, genetically determined. So some people may be reacting more aggressively than others with a superstorm of inflammation and killing themselves.
Yeah.
That's how difficult it is to understand what's going to happen to an individual. There's basically no way to know.
Yeah, that's actually my newest video called Cytokine Storm, explaining that, about how people hyperreact. Okay, next question. How much longer until we go back to normalcy, if you had to predict?
You know what? I've been looking. Again, I'm not the best judge of that because I'm between two countries. So the U.S. is reacting well, especially on the West Coast, and hopefully it stays that way. But individuals we get in Mexico, like I was saying, the anti-tuberculosis vaccine may have an effect over the population. Maybe we don't see that many numbers. So when it's slowing down in the U.S., it's going to be barely starting in Mexico. So I'm hopefully believing that in our society, I'm seeing such a slow spread compared to what I've seen in the U.S. that there's a hope that we might end this whole thing by late June.
Late June, yeah, I think sometime midsummer. So, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, do you think it's safe to take your kids to the park, playground?
Yes, but I did another webinar, and it was on masks. The use of masks, and I'll try to keep it brief, but there's healthcare professional masks, and then there's other masks. When you look at the N95 and the surgical masks, they mostly work. They're as effective comparatively between them. So those masks should be assigned only for healthcare professionals, and nobody should be wearing them or using them because, well, they're needed in the healthcare setting.
So do you think homemade masks work or don't work?
I think homemade masks, and that's where I go with my second comment, work to protect others. We know that there are people that are asymptomatic. Number two, we know that micro droplets are the barrier. That vehicle is a droplet. It's a micro droplet. Those micro droplets are emitted constantly, including when you talk and when you breathe. So if you put a barrier between your holes in your face, which are your nose and your mouth, there's a high probability that a cloth, and we did I'll actually.
So in Texas, growing up, mamas used to say, "Shut your pie hole."
Oh, exactly, and we're talking about the upper ones.
Yeah.
To the face.
That's funny.
If you use a mask, there's certain, and I'll say it right now, there's either cotton doubling up on a cotton cloth like a t-shirt, a pillowcase, a kitchen towel is extremely effective, up to 60% effectiveness in filtering out particles from the ambient air. But that's not why you're using it. So yes, I advocate for the generalized use.
Do you think it's a real problem, or is it overblown?
I'm going to only talk about what I know, and I know California just sent out ventilators, which is good. I have a lot of friends up here in California as well. You and I share a lot of international friends in the US as well. Mexico has a dire shortage of ventilators, and I know they're naming it atypical pneumonias because they're not testing for them, and because they're not testing for them, they can't call them COVID, right? Which then they don't have to really report. Don't you find that interesting?
Is this a government conspiracy? Do you think the data reporting is a type of control, government trying to control the masses?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
I definitely believe that.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at the bulletin boards in the different hospitals. Atypical pneumonia. Look, if it barks, it's got big teeth, ears, wags its tail, lifts up his leg to pee, you can call it what it is.
Okay.
So right now they're saying there's this incredible outbreak of atypical pneumonias, and the question to ask is, does that happen every year? Oh no, it's only happened this year. Well, it's COVID.
Right. Do you think that a lot of physicians are going to go out of business?
I think there should be kind of a revival of respect for physicians. I really do. And
healthcare workers in general.
Yes, healthcare workers in general. And I believe that the U.S. healthcare system is broken, and you're a casualty of it.
I am.
It's a system for profit, which is run by insurance companies that are gambling. It's legalized gambling with your health. They're betting that you're going to pay them more than they will have to pay out to treat you.
That's interesting, yeah.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's what the U.S. healthcare system is based on, legalized gambling. And once, or is it not, they're trying to find the cheapest, least amount of expense, the quickest way out, so they can keep that profit instead of it reinvesting it in the patient.
Okay, another question. Do you think Bill Gates made this virus because he predicted it in the YouTube video 6 years ago and now is offering the vaccine from one of his companies? Is it a Bill Gates conspiracy?
There's actually a book out there that predicted this. I don't recall if it's 1987, something like that. But they actually predict that it was Wuhan where the virus. Oh, yes. And we can post that later, but that's spectacular because the book is right there, and then they highlighted it, and you know how we're communicating back and forth with all our colleagues and the memes and stuff like that. But when I read that, I looked at the book and I said, "Holy moly, that's a hell of a." Now, there's a lot of people that are going to say all this conspiracy stuff, and then they're going to say, "Why wasn't it done earlier?" etc. If anyone wants to bitch about that and they knew better, how come they didn't bet on the stock market and made themselves a crap load of money, right? So there's a disparity between what people think they know and what they really know.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. Do you believe any of the data coming out of China?
I have to believe a lot of it. I don't want to go into the ethics and the interests from a government standpoint, but I have to believe a lot of it because it has been seen to be replicated in other parts of the world.
Okay. So the doctor who tried to blow the whistle in Wuhan, on the Chinese doctor who tried to blow the whistle, he died, and they're saying he died of COVID. Do you believe that, or do you think something more sinister happened?
Well, it's interesting that back then when he died, this guy looked very young.
Yeah, he was only like 32.
Yeah, but you Asians look young all your life, man.
No, it had his birthday.
His picture and lying down, it's like, wow.
Wow.
And if I recall, I think he was contracting the disease.
Supposedly contracting the disease. That's what I'm saying.
So now a question for you.
Oh,
you know what?
Let's do it.
What are you telling your patients right now? If you were to tell them in a nutshell, and not only patients, people that follow you, it's that we're there. Like we said, they're at home. Not the best selections from what they can eat, physical activity, exercise, which are two different things, stressing out. Give me some tips, just very basic tips that you would say if you had to select one thing on each topic.
I would say, well, gosh, one thing, like I would turn off the news. Like just listening to all these talking heads all the time saying the same thing over and over and over again does not help you. In fact, we know that stress hurts your immune. Being happy and feeling abundant, joyful boosts your immunity.
That's why they got to see our series, man.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. And so, you know, in my challenge in my group, we talk about meditation. The first thing I teach them when they join is how to meditate so they can control this monkey brain of theirs that's causing all the stress, which, as you know, releases all the catecholamines and the stress hormones that keep us in a perpetual state of stress, which hurts us. So we focus on meditation to calm it down, and the meditation is very simple. We just focus on your breathing, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And I teach them a very simple meditation technique called I am meditation, where you just, on your inhale, you think in your head, I, and on your exhale, you think am, I am, I am. And that's the most basic form of meditation I teach. And then we also start with the gratitude journal. We write about all the I'm grateful and thankful for in my life. I'm grateful and thankful for. I'm grateful and thankful for. And we get them to hammer that down really, really hard. Because honestly, Ariel, if you are stressed out and you're worried and slowing down your chips and your popcorn and your snacks, right? It's not until you stop the noise coming into your head, turn off the TV, and then you work on breathing and slowing down your brain, then you can actually see the apple in front of you. You acknowledge the apple and you think, I'm going to choose this apple today. So choice comes from actively being aware of what's happening around you. And in this current state, and people have called it a panic, media hype, whatever, that people aren't making clearest decisions. So it starts with calmness and meditation and gratitude. And we start there, right? And then if you don't like meditation or it's hard for you, do it anyway. But two, people can walk. You've heard it. I'm going to take a walk to clear my mind. That works. We know that works. There's actually a form of meditation called walking meditation, made popular by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a brother, countryman. And you can do walk to clear your mind. You can get more physical activity. There are joggers, runners who call it a runner's high, not California high, but runner's high. And
you envious, dude, you.
And then you can, like you said, activity, exercise. So getting reconnected. There's also touch. So one of the things that people get confused about social distancing, they think that's the same thing as not touching somebody. It's not quite the same. If you come over or you come home from a hard day's work, you wash your hands really well, you change out of your clothes, you can hug and kiss your kids all you want. You know, if I just took a shower and I shaved for you today to be on this broadcast.
you're
So
looking
my
great.
hands are all clean. There's no coronavirus. I can touch my face all I want. I can go hug my baby all I want. I can. So touch is super important to our immune system and that. But at the end of the day, we have to give our bodies the building blocks to build that immune system. So we need to do green smoothies. We need to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. This is the time to not stress eat, to not snack, to not eat processed foods. Are you going to be in your fruits and vegetables? Are you going to have 20 pounds of weight regain, or are you going to maintain your weight loss? Are you going to be yelling and bickering at your husband and family members, or are you guys going to be closer than ever? Are you going to be isolated, or will have you met your neighbors and now know your neighbors? The choice is ultimately up to you, because I hate to say it, but this will happen again. Like another viral attack will happen again, because nature is just much smarter than us.
Yeah, it's the times, man. We don't know if it's going to be this virus or a next virus, or it's going to be something else.
Or bioterrorism, or massive earthquake, or I mean, it could be anything.
And this is during these difficult times is when you see your true inner self shine through, and sometimes we see really incredible human qualities. I do maybe half an hour. I want to know if the spread, where it's going, what new precautions I have to take. Usually our groceries, grocery bags, the mail, boxes, cardboard. We're extremely weary about being very aggressively cleaning them and removing the stuff and cleaning them again, because you forget that somebody else was breathing on them and touching them, and the mailman was breathing on that box that you suddenly grabbed, and then you open it and you forget to wash your hands, and you grab whatever, and you grab your kid, etc., etc. So that's the other tip I'm giving. And last but not least, I'm a firm believer that metabolic disease comes from high insulin. High insulin is only stimulated by carbs. So I try to keep away from carbs. I try to keep away all my patient population from carbs. Only good carbs, which are leafy greens and vegetables that grow above ground. Eat as much, not as much protein as you want, just normal amount of protein. Eat as much fat as you want. And fat burns fat. Carbs crave carbs. And last but not least, exercise. And a lot of folks are asking me, I don't have a gym. So you know what I've started doing? Because I'm basically in a jail here at my home. I found this Amazon jailhouse program, gym in your own home. It's pretty cool, man. It's this jailhouse prisoner workout system. It's very cool and very challenging.
Okay, last question for you. Since you guys been on lockdown, stayed the same?
Well, I mean, the sexual activity is going to definitely keep you toned.
I can't believe you said that.
Hey, it's an inspiration, man. There's going to be corona babies.
No, that's right. 13 years from now, they'll be called quarantines.
Exactly. Hey, man, so I'm pretty sure you're out of time as well as I am. I appreciate you coming online. And, well, we actually did. You interviewed me and I interviewed you, so
it was perfect.
Useful for both. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
I will definitely keep in touch, and I'll send you some links over. I'll actually promote all your stuff on our websites as well, because at the end of the day, what we're doing here is we're trying to use a little bit of that knowledge we've learned over the years. Just like you said, all those studies you did have given you wisdom, and the wisdom is a far more analytical level than just learning the stuff that we learned in school. We're at a very deep analysis state where we can understand disease, and then we can apply it to our own lives and to the lives of very unique example of that. I'm extremely impressed over the years how your heart is as big as your cerebrum, man.
Oh man, thank you. Back at you. You're amazing. I mean, I love listening to you talk. everything you do in our International Bariatric Society is just really amazing. So honored to call you my friend.